Hey everybody, it's me, Margaret. I'm here with another video. I actually had a whole nother set of things I wanted to talk about. I had a theme for it and everything, but I decided there's too many bits and pieces to go in this week for me to actually go with my theme that I was going to do. So typical to my fashion, I'm just throwing pieces together so that you can see what's happening in my crafting world. But at least you know I got more things to talk about in the future, right? Let's jump into it. So this yarn is called Bloom by Olander Wools, which is a Knit Crate brand. The color is delphinium. It's 80% alpaca wool, 10% silk, and 10% camel. It's considered a DK weight. So here were all the colors that were available in this month's Knit Crate. If you got the Sock Club, these would have been your choices down here, but I don't. I get this one, so they sent me delphinium here. And then the patterns, this was for both clubs. This was the regular Knit Crate, and then the Sock Crates were these patterns right here. But this immediately caught my eye, and not in a good way. This yarn, as we just saw, has alpaca in it and silk. I don't know what the properties of camel are, but I do know about alpaca and silk. And that doesn't make for a good bag, so I would discourage you, if you did get this yarn, use this great pattern with another type of yarn. This is going to stretch. So no matter what size you intend it to be, when you put stuff in it, it's just going to really stretch. What will end up happening when you use the wrong yarn to make a bag is these straps are going to hang so low, and even the bag itself, the contents will make the bag stretch out. So I've heard a tip where you can pair whatever yarn you're choosing with a cotton, and that will keep it from stretching, or it will help prevent it. But I still would avoid something like this. Think more about a workhorse yarn, a cotton or an acrylic for a bag. But isn't that a precious pattern? Now you will hear the alpaca is not elastic, meaning that it's not stretchy, and that is true, but so I can't find the right word. It grows, it expands. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. So it's not stretchy in a sense that it's elastic. It doesn't go ring, 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 ring when you pull on it like that. So keep that in mind. And if you want to make it out of that, fine. Make your bag out of that fancy yarn. My question really is, why would you want to? Wouldn't you want some alpaca and cashmere up by your face? I don't know, I just feel like it would be so soft. It is soft, I can feel it. A few years ago, I got a sweet note from YouTube user Purple Blanket Lord, and she sent along with this wonderful giant skein of acrylic yarn. She chose gray because she knew that I raved about gray. It's one of my favorites to work with, especially when doing any kind of scrap project, because gray is a color that goes with a lot of other colors. She mentioned that it's a little rough, which it is, but that it did wash up beautifully. So the other day I pulled it out and made a simple hat, and here's what it looked like when finished. Okay, so here it is before washing. It's very stiff. You can just tell how stiff it is. So let's see what happens when we wash it. So after washing, look at it. It's just as soft and flowy as it can be. Very, very pleased with it. But when you saw how hard it was right at the very beginning, I thought, gosh, I could make that really cute bag with this yarn, not wash it, and it would hold its shape really, really well. I don't know, but I'm going to try it because I think that bag is cute. So here I've got the bottom started right here, and I mean, I don't know how to illustrate how stiff it is. It's just, I don't know, it just seems like it's a really good fabric. So I'll keep you posted on how that works out. One of the things I dislike about yarn crafting is having to get out my Swift. However, I've been itching to knit with some high quality yarn, so I'm taking the time to do it. Now don't get me wrong, I'm happy to have a Swift and ball winder because I surely wouldn't enjoy doing it the old-fashioned way. Finer yarn always arrives this way, and the trick is to reverse the process as smoothly as possible. By reverse the process, I mean that it's somehow wound into this big loop, either by hand with the help of a knitting knotty or by machine. Then they twist it and tuck it, and you have this lovely hank. Now, I've always been told to leave it in its original hank until it's ready to use. This keeps it from being stretched out, which would mess with your gauge and sizing when it comes time to make a project. But I imagine it also depends on how tightly you wind your yarn into a ball. If we wind it rather loosely, we'll probably be okay, but I've never scientifically tested that theory, so there's that. So here I am transferring some of that nice alpaca tinsel blend from Knit Crate that I showed you in the last video, and yes, I listen to classical music. The best trick to offer is to keep your swift loose. Sometimes the strand tucks under the other strands, and if it's tight, your swift is going to come to a screeching halt. So keep it loose and the strands will release easily. I also make sure that the yarn feeds into the ball winder at the proper angle, and this means you got to find the midpoint between where it comes off the swift and where it enters the winder, and that's what I'm doing with my left hand. And this sounds more complicated than it is. You just get a feel for it. If it enters the winder at a weird angle, the ball winder may give you trouble. At least that's the case with this inexpensive version that I have. Now, while I was working on this pretty Audine Wools Twinkle DK, I ran into something worth mentioning that may just be my personal idiosyncrasy, but well, let me show you. So here I am going about my usual methods. Adjusting the swift to this particular hank, which needed to come in a little bit, and cutting off those ties that bind, when I noticed one of my particular preferences was off. Another tip is to figure out where the outer strand is. In this case, it would have been feeding off the back of my swift, so I'm going to turn it over. Now, if I don't turn it over, I'll have to lean over the table to hold it out, which is certainly possible, but it's not very comfortable. So I'll take the time to flip it over and that to the way that it suits me best. And speaking of alpaca, I made something out of the alpaca that I showed you last week from the March Knit Crate. However, it's really not ready to show off. It needs to be blocked. It is a cowl called the Golden Fields Neck Warmer. Maybe if I show you that picture, it'd be easier for you to see. I'll link this in the description box below. It's a free pattern, and it was simple. It has basically 4 rows that you have to remember, and you knit between each row. But it does make this neat little, what would you call that? Like a little leaf type pattern? I don't know, but clearly I have to block it because it's supposed to be, you know, longer and to stretch out so you can see this lovely pattern and all that. I just haven't gotten that far. But I have to tell you, it was a dream to work with. This was so wonderful. So now I'm kind of in my kick where I really just want to work with the good stuff. But I did start that bag with the acrylic, and I am going to try to finish that. So, but this is great. But on another note, I had more of that. It only took me one hank to complete. So I had a whole nother one right here. And quite frankly, frou-frou is usually not my style. I tend to do things that are a little bit more plain. And I also, this may mess up my microphone, but it's kind of a roomy cowl, which kind of defeats the purpose of being nice and warm and toasty as far as I'm concerned. So what I would do is probably stuff that down the back of my coat so that it stays up here nice and warm if I were to wear this. So I thought, well, why don't I make myself a ribbed one too? So here's a very simple ribbed version that I'm making with this luscious yarn, and I can't wait to put it in some nice good smelling soak, and actually it smells pretty good as it is, but you know what I'm trying to say, to get it normal. I'm also not keen with my bind offs because I don't bind off that often. I'm usually making hats, and hats don't really have a typical bind off, so I don't have a lot of practice. I did okay on this. This is called the Simple Stretchy Bind Off. Which one is it? Oh, that's a good sign if I can't tell the difference, huh? It was this part up here. So I did a pretty good job with it up there. Kind of rolled so you can't tell, but just trust me. I'm pleased with my work on that. But anyway, that's that. I've been a bit under the weather with vertigo, of all things. Never had it before. It's been quite interesting because there's all these techniques that you can use to help lessen the effects of the vertigo, where you're hanging your head upside down off the side of the bed, and I don't know, there's a million different ones, and they really didn't work so well for me, although they seem to work well for everybody that I've talked to. And that's strange in that, you know how you never really hear about something like vertigo, and then when you mention it, almost everybody you know says, oh, that happened to me, that happened to me. So apparently it's pretty common. So anyway, to make a long story short, I'm feeling pretty good today. But I was trying not to move around too much, and I was up here in this room, and I wanted something to do, and I grabbed whatever was handy. And you've seen this yarn before. It was from Yarn Bee. What was it called? It's Finch Feather, and this is Glowing is the name of the line from Yarn Bee. And I have found that I do like variegated yarns or whatever to be knitted instead of crochet. That's just my personal preference. However, another personal preference I have is to put a solid color band on it. I don't know why that is. I don't know why I would prefer to have the solid color band on it. Now when I hold this up to the camera like this, the blue doesn't seem to go nearly as well as it does when I'm looking at it like this. So that's a question. But anyway, this was I don't want to go wandering around looking for anything. I need to stay put. All my supplies are handy right here. What could I do? And I just made a very simple hat, letting the yarn do the talking, and it came out fine. I recently bought the Kindle version of this book for a whopping $2.99, and I thought there might be somebody out there who would like it too, so I'm going to talk about it. First, remember that you don't need to own a Kindle in order to read Kindle books. You can read it on your computer or your phone or your iPad or tablet, all for free. Simply Google how to read a Kindle book on my whatever, and you'll find easy instructions. Now, this isn't just a book of patterns. It's full of information on sizing, which is the thing that holds me back from making garments in the first place. There's a lot to consider, and it's not as simple as just making a swatch. The idea is to read all this stuff before you begin. This is the whole reason I bought the book, because this is really good information, and it's so well thought out. First, note that all the patterns call for yarn ranging from DK to fingering weight. She arranges the patterns in pairs. The first one will be with a higher end yarn, and then the second one will be with a budget conscious yarn, she calls it. But I gather you're able to interchange those suggestions. And this is important. Since very few commercial yarns are on the market forever, I've chosen classic fibers that are likely to be available in a similar weight when you're searching for yarns in the future. So even if the suggested yarn isn't available, you'll be able to substitute easily because all these yarns are prevalent blends. So that's good to know. So back to the patterns. The simpler garments come first, and then they progress in skill level throughout the book. And here's a sneak peek of the patterns that are available. This is the one on the front of the book. It's so pretty. I'm going to link this gorgeous book below, and obviously the price has either gone up or maybe I bought it when I had a bunch of credits that brought my Kindle price down. But this is what it is currently on Amazon. So check the description box below if you're interested. And still on the subject of sweaters, longtime YouTube friend Sandra Bendick gave me some great info, and it started like this. So Sandra said, I'm a big fan of knitting with tencel, bamboo, linen, or cotton because of our Florida temperatures. There's nothing like picking up my needles to completely zone out and de-stress. To which I replied, I totally agree. Zoning out is underrated. Ha! You know, it's been a while since I knit with linen. I remember not liking it at all. So rough before washing. But maybe it was just that yarn. I need to go dig out that half-finished project. And I did. So here it is in my cute bag that Erin made for me. I'll link her Etsy store below. You know, I hadn't talked to her about that in a while. I wonder if she's still doing her Etsy store. I feel like she is. Let's see what's in here. This is a linen yarn. Why is that in there? Or that. Oh wait, this is an aside. These are the pot holders that fold on themselves, which is a tutorial that I did ages ago. And I did these two little things up because no matter what I do, I always get a square. You can change the starting chain and all that. Regardless, I always get a square. But every now and then I get these comments from someone who says, I get a rectangle and I cannot figure out why that is. So if you know the answer, let me know. I'm guessing it has something to do with gauge. Okay, then we have a black cotton in here. This must have been me packing up in a hurry. Yep, see, look, here's another one of those pot holders. Sorry, I can't seem to stay on topic. Okay, here's what I was making. It was a little scarf thing from Plymouth Yarn, free pattern. And here is the yarn. It's a linen. Hang on, let me get it out without doing too much damage. So pretty. Oh gosh, I forgot how pretty it is. So I probably need to finish that up because it's much prettier than I remember. In my head, I was thinking maybe I'll just tear this out and try to make something else with it, but it's much prettier than I remember, so I think I'll finish it. The thing about linen, as we all know, it comes from a plant. It's a plant fiber, and it's rough when it's in its original state. However, there is nothing softer than linen when it begins to break down a little bit. Now, I use that term loosely. It doesn't break down in the form of not holding up well. Linen is an excellent fiber. However, it softens as it begins to, be used. Washing is the very beginning of that step. And I would recommend hand washing, but this really is pretty. I need to finish this. I wonder if my gauge is the same. I'll have to be very conscious of that. This particular yarn was called, or is called, Yᴏᴜʀ. Got it ages ago. It's 100% wet spun linen. I'd have to look that up to see what wet spun actually means. And the color is angelfish blue. And it really is pretty. However, I'm very interested to check out the yarn that Sandra recommends. Look at this next post. So it was Sandra's reply to this that was really, really helpful. She said, I agree that the linen is rough to knit with. It does become much softer with washing and wearing. My favorite is Sandnes Garn Line. It's a mixture of cotton, viscose, and linen. I love that yarn so much that I bought enough to make another Anchor Summer shirt by Petite Knits. It'll be my 4th one. Yes, I'm a little obsessed. So naturally my curiosity is aroused and I had to look it up. And it is an adorable sweater. So I bought it and I think I'm going to give it a try when I get my nerve up. And I may just have to get some of this yarn that Sandra talked about as well. I had never heard of it before, but it really does look pretty and kind of looks like it may have a little sheen to it, but I really like the blend here, cotton, viscose, and linen. I think that makes a really good combo in my mind, and she says it's wonderful, so I'll take her word for it. It's also reasonably priced, so thanks for the heads up, Sandra. So that's all for now. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll leave you with a few pictures of things that have happened around here lately, like my seeing a bunch of little turtles all around in the neighborhood here, and a few other interesting snaps here and there, like Buzzy posing with her portrait that Judy did for me. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.